Right, hello, I'm going to show you the features of my patient management system for the GC01 coursework 2015. I'm just going to compile it from the workspace here. This is the first screen which comes up, the login screen. Title at the top and at the top obviously, main feature being at the bottom with the standard login panel. Username will take text input, password takes a hidden input, and something to note is that the system does implement a full user system, so you do require a username password pair to access it. So first of all it will prompt you for both of them. If I type in some random letters it will not let me in. So I've included a couple of users with the program, come preloaded in with 3 here. It's also the first point to note that the file handling of the system is done through XML. So this is an XML document which holds the users. You can see we have a root node of users and then individual user nodes, child nodes there giving the attributes of the users. So you can use one of these to log in, or we can create our own. Let's try that out. So this is the create a new account panel. It has 6, 7, 8 panels in it, which are all essential in order to proceed. They represent the minimal constructor for the user object in this program, so it will ask you to fill in all the text fields. Going through. So let's create a user called John Smith. Let's give him the username jsmith, and let's give him the password GC01. To retype that there. The first important thing to note about the user system is that each user has a unique staff ID. It's identified by this child node here, staff ID. This is also replicated with the attribute ID under the parent node user there. And it's important that these IDs stay unique because this is how we can identify which user is which later on. We can use it as an index to search for the users for. So if I try to enter a user ID which is already in use, like 1 from this here for John, it will actually tell me that I can't do that. It's in use. So instead we have to pick one, which we happen to know is 4 right now, or any other number would do, but let's go with 4 for simplicity's sake. And also this field will tell you off if you try to enter anything other than integers, so that's a good thing. This will check passwords are the same, of course, so important to type them in identically. And the last field is these 2 radio buttons here, which represent the 2 jobs in this hospital, being a doctor and an administrator. And all this does is it controls what access privileges you have within the program. So I'll show you that a bit later on. So let's make John Smith a doctor for now and create his account. And I would imagine that in real implementation you'd have to get an administrator to confirm that you can create that account, but I think for simplicity's sake and so that you don't lock yourself out when you try it out later, I've left that out. So now I should be able to type in jsmith and GC01, click login, and it lets me in. It's the main window, but before we go any further, just to point out that if you log back out again, the password field does clear, so just a little security precaution if you log out and leave it alone. So going back in again, this is the main window. So we've already seen the logout button here. I'm going to start right at the bottom and also point out that it recognises which staff number you're logged in. So it knows that we're number 4, which is, there we are, refresh this one here. JSmith is appended onto the end of the XML, which we can see. It is aware that he is number 4 and he is the one who is logged in. So starting right at the bottom, from here you can view your user profile. So we can see JSmith's details along here. And this is also where he can change his password. So he has to type in his old password first, and then can type in a new one and retype that. So let's set a new password as GC02. It will check that your previous password is correct, so if it's not, but if it is, then with a little wait, the password will change. So I'd show you that I now need to change it to get back in, but in fact I'll check and see it. There we go, it changed down here. Okay, so onto the actual main buttons, so something to point out, as I mentioned earlier, there are some user privileges within the system depending on your job. So going down this middle pane, you can see that the third button is only available for those who have the job of doctor, and the fourth and fifth are only available for those with the job of admin. We know that John Smith is a doctor, so he shouldn't be able to access these two, and indeed if he clicks on it, it'll tell him you can't access that. He can, however, click on this one. I will get to that just in a minute. So let's start with the search function. So going into the second tab here, it's a 2-tab pane here, we get the search panel. From here you can type in to search under any of these 6 fields of patients, and I'll show you why it does those 6 now. So we go back to options, click add new patient, which is one of the main functions of this window. See that just like with create new user, we get a panel here where we can enter a minimal number of text to create a new patient, and these 6 panes are the minimal constructor for the patient object. So again, it will nag you until you enter something in every text pane as such. Okay, so the reason why we search through these is because we know that these are constant across all patients. When the patient constructor is initialized, it takes in these 6 values and turns them into what the text field says, but then it takes all of the other values, and I will show you the patient's XML now, because there's quite a few nodes for this one. So it's these top 6, which are initialized by that, and then all of the rest of conditional bookings, booking, contact number, contract address, are just set to an empty string. But you will never be able to edit any of these fields down to an empty string, so we know that we can always search using that. So one of the important parts of the patient, very similar and analogous to the user, is that they have a unique patient number, much the same as the user's staff ID. And if you try to add a new patient with a similar patient number to another one, it will, like with the staff and the staff ID, tell you you can't do that. And the very powerful thing from it means that from this panel we can search a patient number, and we're guaranteed to get exactly one result, which is that patient. So look in the patient's XML, we can see that patient number 3 down here, Carly Carlson, it has the patient number 3. So if we wanted to find her, type 3 into here, and we will come up with this search result here with her, the minimal results, of course, in the table for her. You can see that these data here. Also notice that there's called assigned staff, and this is the member of staff, or the staff ID of the member of staff you've been assigned to. And this is the reasoning behind the view your patients button. So for doctors, assuming that these are the people whose staff are assigned to, the patients are assigned to, view your patients is just a quick fire method of going into search and typing your own staff ID into assigned staff. So if J. Smith does this, fine, he doesn't have anybody assigned to him because he's only just been created. So let's try adding a new patient for him. So I don't know, let's add a patient, Mr. Nobody, and we'll assign him to staff 4 because we know that that was J. Smith's. I have a date of birth of 4th of February 1987, and got to find a patient number which nobody else has. As I said, if I add in a condition for just giving the flu, if we add, say, patient number 1, it will complain because patient number 1 already exists, of being Adam Adamson up here. So what's the next patient number which doesn't exist? That would appear to be number 6. So let's create him number 6, and like with staff ID, it will complain if this is not an integer, and also the assigned staff is not an integer. Okay, so let's add that patient. Marvelous. And actually it takes us straight to the selected patient panel, but we'll come back to that in just a minute. So now if we were to go into view your patients for John Smith, we would see Mr. Nobody come up here. And And the final button for this page, we'll come back to the import and export at the very end, is the view all patients, which is just a very quick way of going into search and just clicking search, and it will just find everybody in there. So this takes back the entire patient file as such. And of course you can cross-reference things here. I don't know off the top of the head if any of these have matching things. So say patient number, everybody assigned to patient 1, there is only one patient to staff, no, sorry. Everybody assigned to staff number 3, we can get 2 people here. Yeah, we can match them across various bits. I don't think I've set it up for that. It was lack of foresight on my behalf. Okay, so let's have a look at the selected patient panel, which is the next one up. Let's have a look for Mr. Nobody here. So if we go into any search result, or add a new patient, it takes us straight there as we saw. But let's say we go into this, you'll see the button Select underneath the table. So let's select this Mr. Nobody, and this takes us into the final real main window, which is the actual database for the patient, the system to access it. Anyway. So you see it's a multi-tabbed panel, and the first tab is the patient details, and this is either 5 of the 6 of the minimal records from before. Let's stop here. You can see that from here I can't actually touch any of them, and that's because this is just displaying the data now, and I have to click Enable Edit, which will set all these text fields to enable. And from within Enable Edit I can then play around here and click Save Changes and it will save it, or if I decide I don't like it, do Cancel Edit and it will take it back to where it was before. And you might notice that the patient number cannot be changed, and this is for the reason we said before, that it is vital for being able to identify patients, and so there's changing it from here could cause a lot of problems with the system. So I would imagine in this hospital, if you wanted to change a patient's number for any reason, you would have to actually go to administration, who would access the XML file and change it manually. But besides the point. Anyway, and if you do decide that you want to make a change, so let's say change Mr. to Mr. Click Save Changes here. I'll update that patient, click it back to uneditable, and that'll be that. And to show that it persists over time, if we go back, because this now loses our selected patient, so we're back to null patient selected. So selecting them again, we can see that the data has been transferred, and indeed, we can just look at the very bottom of here and see that Mr. Nobody exists in the XML. Let's select him again. So onto the second panel, it's the condition panel, and this is where the final condition from before existed. So it's flu. This is also where the web link exists. Actually, my Save Changes button seems to have been pushed off the side. It is there, but looks like the flow layout has cut it out, so I'll have to just... It works exactly the same as with here. When I click Edit, so it's non-editable at first, I click Edit, this text box comes available, and I can change it here and do the same as before, change it back if I don't like it, or click Save Changes somewhere over here. If I do want to make the save change. The condition web link, on the other hand, is a bit different. This is actually a button right now, currently with empty text, but if I were to click on it, it would attempt to open up a web page in my browser, or the system browser, anyway, system independent, for the hyperlink inside it. So it's a bit tricky to edit the text on the button. So this is actually a card panel, and if you click Enable Edit, it switches the cards to a text field as the second card in there, which you can then change. Then when you click Save or Cancel Edit, swap back to the button whose text is set dependent on that text field. So as my button has temporarily disappeared, and I'm not starting the whole video again for the third time, to show you a different patient. So let's have a look at, say, Adam Adamson. See all his details in here. There you are. So he's already got a link loaded in from the XML here. Condition L. So if we click on this, it does indeed take us to the Wikipedia for that. works. That's nice. So let's go back to Mr. Nobody. So on to the third panel, contact details. Now this is one of the first ones which is completely blank, because when the constructor is pulled with the minimal text, it just leaves blank spaces for all of these. So the intention is that the doctor or the administrator creates a patient with the minimum amount of data and then can go and fill in the fields later on at their leisure, because they may not have all the information to begin with. So in here, same deal as before, click Enable Edit and type stuff in, so something in here, and Metro. Oh, that's a named file. Let's call it Mary. And save the changes there, like so. With a little pause. And once again, if you decide you don't like it, cancel it, and it reverts it back to where it was before. And we'll see that that has indeed been updated in our patient number 6 down here. Contact details. Next one is admin records. This is a record of their bookings. So when a new patient is created, a empty booking is created, essentially booking 1, which you can see here. So let me show you one with a number of bookings in first to make it a bit clearer. So we go back to Adam Adamson, the bookings here, yes, 2 here, and you get a table saying the number of it and the text in there. So in this case, we want to add a new booking. Click on it here, get the free, and it does demand that you enter at least something, because entering an empty booking is a bit pointless. But actually, this is one of the ones where it doesn't. You can leave a text field free, and that's leave 1 or 2 free, and that's fine because you might not have all the details. It'll also jump back afterwards. It has to refresh. But, yeah. So then to edit these ones, you click this one here, and you get the edit panel here. So the idea is you have it here, and you, using this spinner, find the number of the booking you want. So say number 2 here, and you fetch it into these panels. Well, let's actually change the empty booking, because that'll be the idea. You get the empty booking, then your first one, you go in here and you type it in through edit. And let's add some detail to this. I don't know, maybe he's had surgery on the 5th of March at 2 PM. Save the changes, and go back. That's been done perfectly. Or, the other hand, you don't like it, fetch it, and click delete. It's all gone. There's the admin records. On to the next one is pictures. So each user is initialized with a blank avatar profile picture. So they will always have at least this as a picture here. So yeah, profile picture, and can upload a new photo. Gives you a little warning that if you do this, you can't undo it afterwards. So let's grab. There we are. Let's grab Dogan from here. You can upload a new photo here, and just to show that it persists. Go out, back in, still there. Go down here, update it down there. All good. And if you want to delete that, click delete there, and it'll revert back to the blank avatar. Yeah, as I said before, this persists, so to Adam Adamson, and here's a. No, maybe he doesn't. I thought he did. Never mind. Anyway, that is the pictures panel. On to the next one, pretty simple. Comments panel comes initially empty, non-editable text pane. Click set editable, and this is just a space for doctors to type in whatever notes they want to say in whatever format. Save changes. Good. Much the same system as before. Persists. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, decide you don't like the change, cancel it, goes back, good. Okay, now on to the last part of the selected patient panel. Say we don't like Mr. Nobody anymore, it's the delete tab. Just gives you a little warning that deleting a patient is permanent, obviously. If you click that button, it gives you another warning, and then that should delete him altogether. So if we go back to view your patients, we'll find that John Smith once again has not got anyone in his care, and this has been updated and removed him from the end of the XML. Okay, so on to the last two features. I believe that covers all of the compulsory parts of the coursework, so just on to the last two optional ones now. We'll start with the export patient list, which we can't actually access right now, because if you remember, John Smith is a doctor, not an administrator. So I'll actually log in with one of the preloaded ones I've left, which is the admin account for admin, and the password is just admin. Though of course you could create a new user who is an administrator if you'd like. So that's step number 2. And they can't access this, just to show that that's the case. So let's have a look at export patient list. So this brings up something very similar to the search results panel of all the patients, but this time select them. You select them for export, and you can select any number of them. So let's say we want Carly Carlson, and Eileen Edwardson. I'll give you a little record of the ones which you've selected below. Then you can click Export Selected, a little prompt, and then you can choose a place for them to go. And let's send them to this XML for coursework. Been going. And we'll call it exported.xml. Let's see further. And the patients have been exported. We get zoom back here. Let's go check that it's worked. So we go into the same folder, we'll find exported, which does indeed have the XML file, the same formatting for Carly Carlson at the top and Eileen Edwardson just here. So you can export well-formed XML files of any of the stored patients. So that's the export patient list now. Let's have a look at import patient list. Let's get back to our patients bit here. So just to see who we actually have, or we can do that from the database even, can't we? View all patients, we have patients 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So let's try and import patients from a couple of lists. So I've created 3 lists here. Ignore exported, we just generated that one obviously. So just to demonstrate a couple of, I think, exhaustive features of the importer, but should really do exactly what you expect it to. It will only import those who conform to the structure of our XML. So by that I mean have the correct child nodes. So this is a file I've titled incorrect, and it attempts to import a patient number 7, family name wrong, but we will notice that he does not have the child node for a first name, nor does he have the child node for an assigned staff. So ideally our importer won't allow us to import him. Let's try that out. We try to import incorrect here. Indeed, it tells us that no valid patient entries are imported. If we check the view all patients, we'll see we don't have any mysterious number 7 down there. That can be confirmed with a quick look at the patient file. So it won't import a poorly formed XML file by our standards, nor, now with respect to the importance of the uniqueness of the patient ID, will it allow you to import anyone with the same ID as someone who already exists. So I just have in this file a copy of Adam Adamson, who is, you remember, our patient number 1. It's an exact copy, and as we know, he already exists on the system, so it shouldn't allow us to import him, because that would be a duplicate. So let's try and import that file. Let's add him here. And indeed, it says one patient were not imported as their patient numbers were already in use. And it will also do this if the patient has been assigned to a member of staff which doesn't exist. Yeah, so try the last file out. This one should actually import someone. So we're going to want to try the to import file this time. We'll have a quick look in here. This one at the top has a new patient called Tony Roberts, who is numbered 8. And he's well formed, he has all of the nodes in the right place. But we'll also see that under him there is David Davidson, patient number 4, who is already in our patients file. So ideally it will import Tony Robinson, but will not import David Davidson. And indeed, a bit of a wait. That is exactly what it does, though it has given me a bit of an odd number there, but it has done that. So if we check the file here, you can see that added onto the bottom we have, underneath Eileen Edwardson, Tony Roberts here, and we do not have a duplicate of David Davidson. Don't know why I came up with that number. I must have just had a bit of a string miscalculation somewhere, so I'll change that before I submit it. Anyway, we can also just check in here that, yeah, Tony Robinson exists, and there's all of the things as we expected from before. Okay, I think that is all of the features I need to show you. So I will leave in the submitted file a couple of XMLs for users and patients as backup in case you accidentally delete all of the people in there and forget how to create a login or something, but I'm sure that won't happen. So, wait, I think that's everything, so